2. Thinking in moments. 1. What was your first day like at your current or most recent job? Is it fair to say that it was not a defining moment? Judging from the stories we've heard from underwhelmed employees, what follows is a pretty typical description of a first day. You show up. The receptionist didn't think you were starting until next week. You're shown to a desk. There's a monitor and an Ethernet cable on the desk, but no computer. There's also a single binder clip. The chair still bears the imprint of the previous owner, like an ergonomic buttocks fossil. Your boss has not arrived yet. You're given an ethics and compliance manual to review. "Why don't you read over this and I'll swing back in a few hours," says the receptionist. The sexual harassment policy is so long and comprehensive it makes you wonder a bit about your colleagues. Eventually, a friendly person from your floor introduces herself and whisks you around the office, interrupting 11 different people to introduce you. As a result, you worry that you have managed to annoy all of your colleagues within the first hour of your employment. You immediately forget all their names, except Lester, who might just be the reason for the sexual harassment policy. Does that sound about right? The lack of attention paid to an employee's first day is mind-boggling. What a wasted opportunity to make a new team member feel included and appreciated. Imagine if you treated a first date like a new employee. "I've got some meetings stacked up right now, so why don't you get settled in the passenger seat of the car and I'll swing back in a few hours?" To avoid this kind of oversight, we must understand when special moments are needed. We must learn to think in moments, to spot the occasions that are worthy of investment. This moment spotting habit can be unnatural. In organizations, for instance, we are consumed with goals. Time is meaningful only insofar as it clarifies or measures our goals. The goal is the thing. But for an individual human being, moments are the thing. Moments are what we remember and what we cherish. Certainly, we might celebrate achieving a goal, such as completing a marathon or landing a significant client, but the achievement is embedded in a moment. Every culture has its prescribed set of big moments, birthdays and weddings and graduations, of course, but also holiday celebrations and funeral rites and political traditions. They seem natural to us. But notice that every last one of them was invented, dreamed up by anonymous authors who wanted to give shape to time. This is what we mean by thinking in moments, to recognize where the prose of life needs punctuation. We'll explore 3 situations that deserve punctuation: transitions, milestones, and pits. Transitions are classic occasions for defining moments. Many cultures have a coming-of-age ritual, like the bar and bat mitzvah, or the quinceañera. In the Satirma tribe in the Brazilian Amazon, when a boy turns 13, he comes of age by wearing a pair of gloves filled with angry, stinging bullet ants, leaving his hands covered in welts. Because someone apparently asked, "How can we make puberty harder?" Coming-of-age rituals are boundary markers, attempts to crisp up an otherwise gradual evolution from adolescence to adulthood. Before this day, I was a child. After this day, I am a man with very swollen hands. Transitions, like milestones and pits, are natural defining moments. The transition of getting married is a defining moment in life, regardless of whether it is celebrated. But if we recognize how important these natural defining moments are, we can shape them, make them more memorable and meaningful. That logic shows why the first day of work is an experience worth investing in. For new employees, it's 3 big transitions at once: intellectual, new work; social, new people; and environmental, new place. The first day shouldn't be a set of bureaucratic activities on a checklist. It should be a peak moment. Lonnie Lorenz Fry understood this opportunity. Fry, who worked in global brand strategy and marketing at John Deere, had heard from the company's leaders in Asia that they were struggling with employee engagement and retention. John Deere is not a well-known brand there, Fry said. It's not like the Midwest in the US, where your grandpa probably had a John Deere tractor. As a result, employees had less of an emotional tie to the brand. Fry and her colleagues on the brand team saw an opportunity to build that connection, and it had to start on the employee's first day. Collaborating with the customer experience consultant Louis Carbone, the team designed what it called the first day experience. Here's the way they wanted the day to unfold. You may notice some differences from the first day story above. Shortly after you accept the offer letter from John Deere, you get an email from a John Deere friend. Let's call her Anika. She introduces herself and shares some of the basics: where to park, what the dress norms are, and so forth. She also tells you that she'll be waiting to greet you in the lobby at 9 a.m. on your first day. When your first day comes, you park in the right place and make your way to the lobby, and there's Anika. You recognize her from her photo. She points to the flat-screen monitor in the lobby. It features a giant headline: "Welcome, Arjun." Anika shows you to your cubicle. There's a 6-foot-tall banner set up next to IT rises above the cubes to alert people that there's a new hire. People stop by over the course of the day to say hello to you. As you get settled, you notice the background image on your monitor. It's a gorgeous shot of John Deere equipment on a farm at sunset, and the copy says, "Welcome to the most important work you'll ever do." You notice you've already received your first email. It's from Sam Allen, the CEO of John Deere. In a short video, he talks a little bit about the company's mission: to provide the food, shelter, and infrastructure that will be needed by the world's growing population. He closes by saying, "Enjoy the rest of your first day, and I hope you'll enjoy a long, successful, fulfilling career as part of the John Deere team." Now you notice there's a gift on your desk. It's a stainless steel replica of John Deere's original self-polishing plow, created in 1837. An accompanying card explains why farmers loved it. At midday, Anika collects you for a lunch off-site with a small group. They ask about your background and tell you about some of the projects they're working on. Later in the day, the department manager, your boss's boss, comes over and makes plans to have lunch with you the next week. You leave the office that day thinking, "I belong here. The work we're doing matters. And I matter to them." After the John Deere brand team completed its plan for the first day experience, some offices across Asia began to roll it out. In the Beijing office, it was such a hit that employees who'd been hired earlier were joking, "Can I quit and rejoin?" In India, the program has helped to differentiate John Deere in the highly competitive labor market. Shouldn't every organization in the world have a version of this first day experience? 2. John Deere's first day experience is a peak moment delivered at a time of transition. When a life transition lacks a moment, though, it can become formless. We often feel anxious because we don't know how to act or what rules to apply. Consider a story shared by Kenneth Doka, a licensed mental health counselor who is also an expert on grief. A woman came to him who had lost her husband to Lou Gehrig's disease, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ALS. They'd had a happy marriage, she said. He was a good father and a good husband. But ALS is a cruel, degenerative disease, and as her husband's illness advanced, he required more and more care. It was tough for both of them. He was a proud man, the owner of a small construction firm, and didn't do sick well, as she said. They fought more than they ever had. But they were devout Catholics, and they had tremendous faith in their marriage. She said that every night, after a tough day, they'd put their hands together in bed so that their rings touched, and they'd repeat their wedding vows to each other. When she came to see Doka, it had been 6 years since her husband passed, and she told him that she thought she was ready to start dating again. "But I can't take my wedding ring off," she said. I can't date with my wedding ring, and I can't take it off. She believed that marriages were for life, but she also knew that she had honored her commitment. She was confused and stuck. Doka has written extensively about the power of therapeutic rituals to help people who are grieving. He suggested that she needed a ritual of transition to take off the ring, and she liked the idea. So, with her permission, he worked with her priest to create a small ceremony. It happened one Sunday afternoon, after Mass, in the church where she was married. The priest had called together a group of her close friends and family members, many of whom had attended her wedding. The priest called them up around the altar. Then he began to ask her some questions. "Were you faithful in good times and bad?" "Yes," she said. "In sickness and health?" "Yes." The priest led her through her wedding vows, but in the past tense. She affirmed, in the presence of the witnesses, that she had been faithful, that she had loved and honored her husband. Then the priest said, "May I have the ring, please?" She took it off her finger and handed it to him. She would tell Doka later that it came off as if by magic. The priest accepted her ring. He and Doka had arranged for her ring to be interlocked with her husband's ring and then affixed to the front of their wedding photo. The ceremony allowed her to attest to herself and the people she loved that she had fulfilled her vows. It signaled to everyone present that her identity was about to change. It was a moment that allowed her a fresh start. At the heart of the reverse wedding story is a powerful insight. At the point the widow went to see Doka, she was ready to begin dating again. And it's clear that, even if she hadn't met Doka, she would have started dating eventually on her own. Maybe it would have taken a month, maybe a year, maybe 5 years. And throughout that uncertain time, she would have felt anxious. Am I ready? Is it okay for me to be ready? What the widow in Doka's story needed was a landmark moment to capture the transition she was making. After that Sunday afternoon ceremony, I was ready. We have a natural hunger for these landmarks in time. Take the prevalence of New Year's resolutions. The Wharton professor Catherine Milkman said she found it striking that, at the start of a new year, we feel like we have a clean slate. Students visited the gym increased at the beginning of each new week by 33%, new month by 14%, and new semester by 47%. So, fresh starts happen not only on New Year's Day, but also on any other landmark date. If you're struggling to make a transition, create a defining moment that draws a dividing line between old you and new you. 3. There are certain landmark dates that are near universal. A survey by the researchers Adam Walter and Hal Hirschfield asked participants to specify the most significant birthdays across a person's lifespan. The winners, ranked in order of votes, were 18, 21, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100. These are milestone birthdays, and every one of them calls for a celebration or, in the case of the 100th birthday, a grudging gratitude that the odometer is still moving. Other than 18 and 21, which come with an expansion of civic and alcoholic rights, respectively, these numbers are arbitrary. Turning 50 seems like a real threshold of some kind, but of course it's not. There is no day in your whole life when you are more than a day older than the day before, unless daylight savings is the black magic it seems to be. Aging is exquisitely incremental. To add meaning to our lives, though, we concoct these thresholds 30, 40, 50, and then freak out when we get close to them. But being arbitrary doesn't make these occasions less meaningful. Milestones are milestones. And just as there are familiar defining moments that mark transitions, such as graduation ceremonies, there are others that commemorate milestones. 40th birthday parties, 25th anniversary trips, 30th year on the job plaques or gold watches. We will not dwell on milestones, since people seem to have a natural knack for noticing them. But as with moments of transition, there are some milestones that seem to go ignored. Students get shortchanged, for instance. Sure, they advance in grade, but why not celebrate their 1,000th day in the classroom or their 50th book read? And why don't we celebrate teachers for their 1,000th student taught? Companies in this era of apps and personal tracking devices have grown much smarter about surfacing milestones that were previously invisible. The app Pocket, which stores articles from the internet on your phone for later reading, informs users when they've read 1 million words. The fitness tracking bracelet Fitbit presents users with awards such as the 747 badge, given for climbing 4,000 lifetime flights of stairs, which rises roughly to the altitude that 747s fly, and the Monarch Migration Badge, which is described as follows. Every year, the monarch butterfly migrates 2,500 miles to warmer climates. With the same lifetime miles in your pocket, you're giving those butterflies some hot competition. These companies are cleverly conjuring up defining moments of pride for the trivial cost of an email. All it required was some attention to milestones. 4. To think in moments is to be attuned to transitions and milestones as well as to a third type of experience, pits. Pits are the opposite of peaks. They are negative defining moments of hardship or pain or anxiety. Pits need to be filled. Most of the time, this is simply common sense. Disney knows, for example, that people hate long lines. So Disney invests in ways to fill that pit by creating interesting displays as a distraction and having performers interact with guests and setting expectations about the wait. And in our personal lives, it's similarly obvious. You need not study a book on defining moments to understand that if your partner is suffering, you attend to them. Yet as we've seen, common sense can have a limited range. Graduations are common sense. First day of work experiences are not. 40th birthday parties are common sense. 1,000th day in school parties aren't. And the same is true with pits. As a small example, take someone who leases a car and dies during the lease term. No doubt your common sense says that the deceased's family could simply return the car and discontinue the lease.
Wrong.
Rather than recognize an opportunity to perform a simple act of kindness in a difficult time, most car finance companies say, pay up. Mercedes-Benz Financial Services, rare among its competitors, sends a condolence letter to the lessee's family with an offer to forgive the lease obligation. Or consider patients who have just learned that they have cancer. Doctors and nurses know to be compassionate and supportive in those fraught moments. But comfort only goes so far. What about quick action? In many cases, patients must wait several weeks or more to begin seeing the chain of specialists who will treat them. Not at Intermountain Healthcare. As reported by Leonard Berry and 2 colleagues, the patient and his or her family are invited to a meeting within a week of the cancer diagnosis. They stay put in one room, and the members of their caregiving team circulate in and out: surgeons, oncologists, dietitians, social workers, and nurses. The patients walk out at the end of the day with a comprehensive plan of care and a set of scheduled appointments. This is not to minimize the importance of giving comfort to a patient. Of course, that's vital. It's simply to say that giving comfort is commonsensical. But scheduling a rapid, all-hands meeting to formulate a plan of attack that's not common sense, that's a conscious effort to fill a pit. What's least commonsensical is that pits can sometimes be flipped into peaks. A study of service encounters asked customers to recall recent satisfying and dissatisfying interactions with employees of airlines, hotels, or restaurants. Almost 25% of the positive encounters cited by customers were actually employees' responses to service failures: slow service, mistaken orders, lost reservations, delayed flights, and so on. When employees handled these situations well, they transformed a negative moment to a positive one. Every great service company is a master of service recovery. An executive of a company that builds custom homes shared with us an insight from his customer satisfaction data. To maximize customer satisfaction, he said, you don't want to be perfect. You want to get two things wrong. Have the customer bring those mistakes to your attention, and then hustle like mad to fix those problems. Thankfully, he hadn't instructed his team to start making mistakes on purpose. But we could tell he was tempted. Business leaders who can spot their customers' moments of dissatisfaction and vulnerability and take decisive action to support those customers will have no trouble differentiating themselves from competitors. Offering to help someone in a difficult time is its own goal and reward. It also has the side effect of being good for business. Take the story of Doug Dietz, an industrial designer from General Electric. He'd spent 2 years working on a new MRI machine, and in the fall of 2007, he had his first chance to see the machine installed in a hospital. He said he felt like a proud papa going to see his baby. When he entered the MRI suite, he saw the new diagnostic imaging machine and did a happy dance, he said in a 2012 TED Talk. Dietz retreated to the hall to watch for the first patients. While he waited, he saw a couple and their young daughter coming down the hallway. The girl was crying. As they got closer to the room, the father leaned down to the girl and said, "We've talked about this. You can be brave." As soon as the little girl entered the room, she froze, terrified. And in that moment, Dietz could see the way the room looked through her eyes. On the wall was a giant warning sign with a magnet and an exclamation point. On the floor, there was yellow and black tape that looked like it belonged at a crime scene. The room was oddly dim, with flickering fluorescent lights, and all the colors were shades of antiseptic beige. The atmosphere was sterile bordering on menacing. And the machine itself that I designed basically looked like a brick with a hole in it, Dietz said. He knew, too, that the experience would only get worse. The girl would be fed into the claustrophobic bore of the MRI, and she'd have to lie there, motionless, for 30 minutes, trying to ignore the machine's loud, alien hums and clangs. Dietz saw the parents exchange an anguished look. They didn't know how they were going to get their daughter through the next hour. He was crushed. In an instant, his pride had turned to horror. "It just broke my heart," said Dietz. What he realized was that he and his designer colleagues had been focused on the machine. How do we make it faster? Sleeker? More powerful? Patients, however, focused on the experience. And when they feared the MRI machine, there were real health consequences. 80% of children undergoing MRIs had to be sedated to get through the experience, and every sedation carries risks. After his epiphany in the MRI suite, Dietz reframed his mission as a designer. He wondered, what if we could design an experience that was actually fun? He convened a team to help him rethink the experience. Leaders of a children's museum, design thinking experts from Stanford, teachers at a daycare center, healthcare staffers who worked with children, and others. The conversations helped him realize the power of a child's imagination to transform a situation. "What is 3 kitchen chairs and a blanket?" he asked. To a child, it's a castle. It's a spaceship. It's a truck. What if the MRI machine weren't an MRI machine but a spaceship? A submarine? Dietz's team reimagined the scanner as part of a larger story. One of the first rooms they designed, for the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, was known as the Jungle Adventure. In the hallway leading into the room, the team placed stickers on the floor that looked like rocks. The kids would instinctively hop from one rock to the next. All the walls inside the room were painted in rich, colorful jungle scenes. And the rocks from the hallway led to a painted koi pond, stocked with fish, which surrounded the machine. the MRI table lowered so that children could climb on top. It had been redesigned to look like a hollowed-out canoe, and the kids were urged to hold still so they wouldn't tip over the canoe as it floated through the jungle. The kids readily embraced the challenge of not rocking the canoe. In his talk, Dietz mimed a kid with his arms straight down at his side with only his eyes moving. "These kids are like statues, they're frozen," he said. Another theme was Pirate Island, where kids got to walk the plank to reach the machine, which was painted to look like a pirate ship. On the wall, a monkey with a pirate's bandana glided through the air on a rope swing. The supply cabinets were disguised as tiki huts. Dietz and his colleagues stayed focused on the kids' anxiety points, such as the loud noises made by the machines. In a San Francisco hospital, they created a cable car adventure room. When kids would come in, they'd get a ticket for the car. One day, Dietz watched a hospital employee talk with a little boy. "Bobby, have you been in the cable car in the city? You remember how it was kind of noisy? So is ours." One day in the Pirate Island room, Dietz was talking with the mother of a girl who'd just had a scan. As they talked, the little girl kept tugging on her mom's shirt. Finally, the mother said, "What is it, honey?" The little girl asked, "Can we come back tomorrow?" Dietz began to weep. He had transformed terror into delight. Geez. Adventure series, led by Dietz, have since been installed in dozens of children's hospitals, and the results have been dramatic. Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh, one of the early adopters of Dietz's design, found that the number of kids needing sedation dropped from 80% to 27%. For the shorter CT scan, only 3% of children needed sedation. The child's key moment of anxiety lying down on a sterile table that feeds into a threatening-looking machine has been eliminated. The kids, Dietz said, are excited to get to the adventure versus holding on to mom's leg. Before, to get them up on the table took 10 minutes, and the scan took 4 minutes. Now they get up on the table in 1 minute, and the scan takes 4. Because of the kids' comfort, the extra expense of the friendly designs is unimportant since the scans go faster. The hospitals can complete more in a day. Dietz's triumph is a story of smart, empathetic design. But it's also a story of thinking in moments. He realized that it wasn't the machine that needed more attention, it was the experience. For patients, a moment of agony was transformed into a moment of elevation. Dietz flipped a pit into a peak. 5. Transitions should be marked, milestones commemorated, and pits filled. That's the essence of thinking in moments. To be clear, not all defining moments fit into these 3 categories. Many defining moments could happen anytime. The popsicle hotline, for instance, is a source of on-demand delight. Similarly, you could pick any Saturday to surprise your kids with a trip to the zoo, and they probably wouldn't complain. For most of the types of moments in this book, moments of elevation and connection and pride, almost any time is a good time. The more you can multiply them, the better. The point we're emphasizing here is that certain circumstances demand attention. And particularly in organizations, these circumstances tend to go unnoticed, as with a neglected first-day experience. Here are some other examples of potential moments in organizations that cry out to be shaped. Transitions, promotions. Getting promoted feels good naturally. Of course, it's a classic moment of pride. But it can also be a tough transition for some managers. Many people are thrust into their first managerial assignments without any training on giving feedback or motivating teams. What's needed is a managerial rite of passage that combines celebration of the honor with, say, a week's worth of shadowing and counseling by an experienced senior manager. The first day of school. Michael J. Reimer, the principal of Roosevelt Middle School in San Francisco, wanted to help 6th graders make the transition from elementary school to junior high. He created a 2-day orientation program that reviewed core math/science concepts and, more importantly, made the students comfortable navigating the school building and their more complex academic schedule. He even set up locker races, which spurred students to get faster at opening their combination lockers, an unfamiliar technology for most. He said that 2 days later, when the 7th and 8th graders showed up, the 6th graders felt like they owned the school. The end of projects. In most organizations, the end of a project is commemorated by the immediate start of a new one. But it's useful to provide closure. For inspiration, consider that Steve Jobs once held a mock funeral on stage for the death of Mac Operating System 9. Mac OS 9 was a friend to us all. He worked tirelessly on our behalf, always hosting our applications, never refusing a command, always at our beck and call, except occasionally when he forgot who he was and restarted. It was a silly but meaningful landmark in time. Milestones. Retirement. When a person retires after a long career, the moment is a hybrid of a transition and a milestone, and for some, also a pit, due to a loss of purpose or fulfillment. Yet retirement celebrations tend toward the mundane, a sheet cake in a conference room with some hastily convened coworkers. The moment deserves so much more. In Deloitte's audit practice, retiring partners are honored at the group's annual meeting. A colleague takes the stage and tells the story of the retiree's life and career. At the end, all the partners toast the retiree, who then has a chance to address the group. It's like a winning hybrid of a wedding toast and a eulogy. Note: we know some introverts might sooner slink into a janitor's closet than endure this, but surely there are less public ways to achieve the same thoughtfulness. For instance, a keepsake book with handwritten memories from colleagues. Unheralded achievements. We celebrate employees' tenure with organizations, but what about their accomplishments? Isn't a salesman's $10 million of revenue earned worth commemorating? Or what about a talented manager who has had 10 direct reports promoted? Pits. Dealing with negative feedback. Your organization may offer 360 reviews to managers. The 360 is a tool that collects feedback from a leader's employees, peers, and managers, thus providing a 360-degree view of how that person is perceived. If so, what happens if someone gets a lousy report? Are you ready with an action plan to help them escape the resulting pit? Loss of loved ones. Employees will lose loved ones, and when they do, they deserve support. Shouldn't organizations be ready with a plan for these unpredictable moments? Imagine if a team could be assembled quickly to provide for time off, a seamless delegation of urgent tasks, and personal support, meals, childcare, errands as needed. Life and work are full of moments that are ripe for investment. In the pages ahead, we'll learn the art of planning them. Clinic 1. The missed moments of retail banking. Note to readers: at the end of each section, we've included a clinic demonstrating how you can use the book's ideas to solve real-world problems. This clinic focuses on the art of thinking in moments. The situation. Major retail banks Citibank, Wells Fargo, PNC Bank, and others spend billions of dollars to brand themselves as trustworthy. They also invest lavishly in technology and their physical environments to improve the customer experience. What's shocking, though, is that even as these banks compete fiercely for customer loyalty, they seem blind to the moments that matter in those customers' lives. Customers might have a relationship with a bank that lasts for decades. Think of how many landmark moments happen in that time. And more to the point, many of those moments actually involve the bank, purchasing homes, changing jobs, saving for education, weddings, retirement, etc. The desire. Could banks learn to think in moments? What moments could a retail bank create? As we saw in this chapter, three situations constitute natural defining moments and deserve our attention. 1. Transitions. 2. Milestones. And 3. Pits. Let's examine each category as it relates to banking relationships. Transitions. 1. Buying a house. Doesn't such a big change deserve commemoration? Many realtors will leave their clients a housewarming gift. And what about the bank holding your six-figure mortgage? What kind of gift does it send? Your first monthly statement. What a missed opportunity. 2. The first paycheck from a new job. What if a bank sent a congratulatory note? Or a gift card for an audiobook to listen to on your commute? 3. Young person opening a first account.
At 1.
Canadian bank. A boy brought in his piggy bank to open an account. His savings amounted to, let's say, $13.62. The teller said, "We are so proud of you for saving your money. Why don't we round that up to an even $20? The boy and his parents were thrilled, and the moment only cost a few dollars. What if bank tellers were empowered to make such gestures more frequently, making their jobs more fun and meaningful? See the Pret A Manger story in Chapter 4 for inspiration. 4. Getting married. Imagine a client calling the bank to add her spouse's name to her accounts, and then a few days later, finding that the bank had bought an item from her wedding registry. Or, what if the bank offered free financial counseling to engaged couples? Milestones. Remember how Fitbit and Pocket commemorate moments that people would otherwise have missed? 1 million words read. Banks could easily do the same thing in countless ways, sending congratulatory messages. 1. When your savings balance reaches milestone targets such as $1,000 or $10,000. 2. When you've maintained an emergency fund balance for 6 months or 1 year. 3. When you've earned $100 or $1,000 in interest from the bank. 4. When you've paid off 25 or 50 or 75% of your mortgage. And then when you finally pay off your mortgage completely, wouldn't it be striking if someone from the bank personally delivered the deed to your home, now yours, and shook your hand? Managers at one Australian bank admitted to us that not only did they not hand-deliver the deed, they actually charged the clients a fee for transferring it. Pits. 1. Getting divorced or being laid off. What if banks gave their clients the option of a 3-month pause on their mortgage payments while they got back on their feet? The same number of mortgage payments would be made. In total, it's just that the final payment would shift 3 months later to accommodate the pause. This same pause could also be offered to new parents. We thought you might have some new things to buy around the house, so we thought you might appreciate a few months mortgage holiday. 2. Assistance handling parents' affairs following death or disability. So many people struggle in this situation trying to untangle bills and assets and debts, and banks are in a unique position to offer counsel and support. Final reflections. It's possible some of these suggestions are too expensive or too intrusive. Some people might not appreciate their banks noticing a new job or a new spouse. The point is that banks miss countless opportunities to boost customer loyalty by creating moments, and the lack of attention to these moments contradicts banks' talk about building strong relationships with clients. A relationship in which one party is oblivious to the most profound moments in the life of the other is no relationship at all. Your business may not have the central role in people's lives that a bank does. But are you missing opportunities to offer support, congratulations, or counsel at critical times? Are you thinking in moments